So good morning, everybody. This talk is going to have a bunch of uppers and downers. So depending on your drug of choice, it's all here. So let's go ahead and get started. The first one's a downer, and that is Tim Christensen, who's been employed here at ARIN for 14 years. He passed away suddenly on August 5th. So this was a big loss for ARIN in that he was our DBA for many years, and he knew how everything was from the Wayback Machine. So this is a big loss. We were able to shore up our staffing, but I want to let you all know that you will not see Tim here anymore. Okay, now for more of the uppers. So let's go on to our staffing. We have 6 operations engineers and 2 managers. In development, we have 8 programmers and a manager. In software integration, which was formerly known as quality assurance, we've had a leadership change, of course, with Tim passing. We now have Garth Dubin, who's in the back of the room. Garth, could you stand for everybody? Who's taking over software integration. Also, if the whole engineering team, since everyone is really close, we decided to bring out the engineering team so that those who hadn't been to an ARIN meeting could see what it's all about. I'm wondering if you guys could all stand. I know this is a lot of work for you guys. So in project management, we have Deb, who was a development person before, and of course me. So accomplishments since ARIN 33. So DNS and now DNSSEC have near real-time updates. We've added TTLs for both name service and DS records, so you can go ahead and change yours at your leisure within ARIN Online and through our RESTful API. We also hardened our signing infrastructure. We're now using secure 64 boxes, which is essentially HSM, and also does the signing. We've also enabled our, with DNSSEC, our forward zones and our individual reverse through the same box. We've implemented shared tickets, as Nate talked about, displaying agreements associated with the organizations related to RSAs, user interface improvements for payment processing, transfers. We've done 8.3, so that's now through ARIN Online, and 8.2 and 8.4 are underway. We're currently working to move away from ARIN HQ with our provisioning production hardware. And I'm going to be talking about some of those reasons why here shortly. And we're also moving away from EMC, which is a very ancient box, to a NetApp, which we use for our SAN. We've made fault tolerance improvements over the past year. The big thing I'll mention here is that we use a virtualized environment big time within ARIN, mainly to save money, but there's been a few cases where we've had to pull some of that stuff away, mainly Microsoft Exchange. Is there anyone from Microsoft here? Okay, good. So it's just it's a huge resource hog. So we basically had to move it to physical hardware to make it behave appropriately. We do a lot of corporate help desk support and IT support. And of course, here at the member meeting, if you have wireless issues, we're here to help, and so on and so forth. So let's talk about OT&E here in a little bit. So this is an environment for you guys to test your code, to test processes. And we've now set up a subdomain, so all the resources that you have under the replicated core services are all named basically very similar to what's in production. It's just under the subdomain otne.arin.net. And the reason why this is all here is for you guys to test. We have lots and lots of APIs for you to use, both on the provisioning side in terms of sending us your SWIPs, but also SWIPs in terms of using the RESTful provisioning service, but also from the directory services side, and also with RPKI. So for those who want to test RPKI but don't want to muck with production, we have a way to do so. And this is somewhat new, but from a participation perspective, we've had 30 new requests since the last ARIN meeting, and we have right now 152 networks that are now playing in this environment. So some of these networks may be more than, may have one or more orgs associated with it, but it's the best way that we can actually show you now, in that this environment is being used by you, and I thank you very much. And for people wanting to go ahead and test new software, to rely on our API. In IETF, Andy and I are very much involved in IETF, both in CIDR and with Weirds. We'll talk a little bit more about RDAP here shortly. In ICANN, I'm involved with the Security and Stability Committee, Root Server Committee, and a technical advisory group that's just started out. Now I want to go into, so we've had a couple of uppers. Now I'm going to go back down to a downer again, because you've got to be kind of even killed. So I'm going to talk about an ups incident. We had some DOS attacks and ISP availability that we're currently challenged with. So ARIN HQ, for you who don't know, is actually in a fairly cheap location. It's cheap, and
there's a reason it's cheap.
yeah, there's a reason why it's cheap. So for those who have come to our office, it's right next to the police academy. So when you come to work, it's not uncommon to hear sirens, screeching tires, small arms, and large caliber arms going off. It's also not uncommon to hear planes taking off and landing, because we're right next to Dallas Airport. And to add on to this, we have a major road being under major construction, Route 50. So you have guns, you have ambulances, you have all kinds of sirens, you have construction gear, and you have plane noises. So if you're allergic to noise, this is not the place to be. We also have lack of power diversity. We only have one major line coming in from Virginia Power. And we have lots of lack of connectivity options within ARIN. So we only have two providers that currently provide us service that we could potentially get service from an internet perspective. And as we've gone through this evolution, we've moved out our directory services to the edge, and we call that PFS, public-facing services. But the provisioning side we've kept in-house until recently. Mail, web, and Reg RWS are all internal. And we've had this long-running project to move it out. While this is going on, our ups decided to go up and die on us. And when it died, it was a major event. We actually had to cut out part of our wall structure to get to the insides of the box. And they replaced much of the innards of the boxes, almost all the CPU cards in it, and it turned out to be a single wire that turned out to be an issue with it that caused the UPS to go crazy. And this was a long-running sort of issue. It took about 3 weeks to fix, and during that time, we were on pins and needles. What we did learn is that we could recover. Since I've been at ARIN, and I've been there now for 7 years, we've never had a power outage where the power in our computer room went out until this particular instance. And there were pieces of gear in there that had never been power cycled. And so you know how things go when you have power cycle really old gear. It's under a lot of stress when it first comes up, and that's the time where it's going to fail. And we only had a few minor failures, but we were able to come up. And since we had a couple of times where our ups decided to go up and die on us, we were able to get better and better at this opportunity to recover our systems. And what this really did is, to be honest, I hated this. I absolutely hated this. And it really renewed the emphasis to us moving to our colo, which has its own issues, but that's a separate thing. We're also suffering from periodic DOS attacks, and this is something that is fairly new for us in the sense that they're hitting our provisioning network. They've been hitting our public-facing side for some time, but that's not a really big deal. But hitting our provisioning network is something that I don't really like. We have some DOS mitigation, but we don't have enough, and this is something that we need to look at better. We need to be able to cleanse the data so the people who are rightfully trying to send us transactions can get in. ISP availability. We've had multiple connectivity issues with our upstreams from ARIN HQ. Planned maintenance or not planned maintenance, we're always continually being surprised. This irritates me to no end, especially at 2 in the morning getting a phone call, having to go in the office and find out that a guy down Route 50, which is having the major construction, is doing some fiber splicing. So we've actually saw that about 3 weeks ago. We've also had issues with our West Coast PFS site with announced and unannounced outages as well, but we're working with that. So operational highlights, now we're on the upper again, is that on our publicly facing sites, we've been up 100% over the last 6 years. Services for this, who is RWS, DNS, mailing lists, and FTP. All those things are on PFS. Now you should ask yourself, so why isn't our website on this public-facing services? And the reason why that's true is the public-facing website is integrated with our provisioning system. And so all that is actually pulled into our ARIN HQ. And that is something that we're going to work on in terms of separating the content, static versus dynamic, hopefully, so that we can have at least the static side out and separate from provisioning. Also, I want to stress is when RPKI becomes real in the sense that people are using this in an operational sense, people are testing it now, that we're also going to be going with the same dedication with RPKI. So, and the repository is out on PFS right now. Here's our ARIN Online usage. And you can see that there's lots and lots of accounts activated. So a huge number. We average about 15,000 a year, new accounts, which is pretty amazing. Here are the number of logins since inception. And what's interesting on this is that the people who've logged in over 16 times. So ARIN Online is being used. And here's the interesting thing. There was some discussion yesterday about APIs, and why don't the registries all to get together on API? ARIN has a API for its provisioning side that's well documented that anyone can pull down, they can play in the test environment, and actually set up a system to actually interact with us. And you can see that people are taking advantage of this. If you look at there, the bar in red, those are all RESTful transactions. Those are reassignments going over REST. And you can see the blue bar is being templates. They're also increasing, but you can see that they're increasing at a much lesser scale. So people are taking advantage of this, and this is great. Other regional registries are in various states of deployment and doing things. RIPE also has a system where you can actually do provisioning through their REST interface too. Here you can see reports through REST. One of the things you may notice is that associations reports have gone up quite a bit, and the reason for that is we deployed recently, right before ARIN 33, the ability to actually get association reports through the API. But you can see that, for example, is a very, very popular service. Okay. DNSSEC, you can see that, well, it's a fraction of a percent that's actually signed with DNSSEC. COM is in the same category. RPKI usage, you can see that there's 153 organizations that are currently using RPKI, or playing with it in our production environment. You can see the covered resources, 332. The thing I'll mention here is that no one's actually asked for up-down yet. So we've not had one single person ask us. Who is queries per second? The thing I'll mention here is you look at the red line, those are the RESTful, it's using the RESTful API. The queries per second is much higher over the RESTful API than it is over the traditional port 43 service, which is in blue. They both total 1,000 queries per second. Here's who is over V6, and I did this as a percentage, and you can see that 6% now is actually over V6. IRR maintainers keeps on going up. IRR routes and Route 6 objects keep on going up at a lesser degree. INET nums and INET 6 nums go up as well. Systems on the forefront, RPKI, as I mentioned, up-down is available. No one's taken it. We've upgraded the HSMs to a 4765 since the 4764s that we were on previously have been decommissioned by IBM. We need to keep up to date on being able to get new hardware if we needed to. RDAP is soon to be an RFC. We have a public test bed that's available for anyone who wants to test with it. The other regional registries are also playing this space, as well as domain registries. I want to mention that we're a small engineering shop. I think you all pretty much know this. And we're attempting to provide, and we are providing exceptional service. And we're creating APIs for you to actually create code for on your behalf, because everybody has their own specialized views on how they want to do this. And you have the ability to do this. And one of the things that we'll mention is that we've had one taker so far on creating a tool that they put in the public domain that actually takes advantage of our API, which is a .NET service. ARIN, who is .NET. Here's again what we've accomplished since ARIN 33. We finished up a bunch of ACSPs, DNSSEC for the forward zones, moved the RPKI to a new HSM, made DNS changes to near real time, started automation on transfers, moving core production from ARIN HQ to the Colo, and moving a SAN from EMC to NetApp. And here's what we're planning on doing for next year, which is somewhat provisional because we have to go through the process of getting approval for next year's plan. What has an asterisk here is what we're currently working on, moving RDAP pilot into production, further automation of transfers, the production move, a migration of the SAN, and here's what we hope to do for next year: add links to who is queries responses, which is ACSP, change who is output for certain/H, which is also ACSP, start SWIP easy, which is a way for those who are currently doing hand templates, which we see a lot of, allowing them to do this over the web instead, using ARIN Online, and deploy two-factor authentication. So, any comments?
Hi, Mark. I'm going to put my OpenIX hat on for a moment just to talk a little bit about your infrastructure problems. You may or may not be aware that OpenIX has a data center standard called OAX2, open, freely available use of the standard to the general public. There's also some checklists that we have on the website that you can use to kind of validate the types of web services or data center services that you're going to get from your providers. I would highly recommend that you at least require OAX2 compliance in citing of your services. Should be a little bit helpful. And that's it. Looks good. Thank you very much. And I feel your pain on the UPS stuff. It's been a lot of years since I worked on small stuff, but I remember it well. I'm really sympathetic.
Thank you.
Kevin Bloomberg. Mark, I really want to say thank you for the depth of the information that you've given us here, which is why I actually have a couple things on here for you, but I really appreciate this kind of information. With the Colo power, it's the gift, sorry, the UPS power, it's the gift that keeps on giving. Unfortunately, if you took a lot of knocks, and we don't really see that in a lot of your outage reports, so that's the one thing I would ask, is just even a brief, hey, we had an issue with our UPS on this time, we got it resolved, would really help when I then come to the mic the next year to say, well, you notified us of 8 things, and I can see there's a pattern here, Mark, we'd really like, as a community, that you work on that, but we don't really know that right now. But please keep in mind that when hardware takes hits, multiple power hits, the life expectancy of that equipment will drop significantly. I'm really glad you guys are moving this out to somebody who, it's their day job. You guys don't need to be in the colo business. With two-factor, thank you. I see it's being worked on. And I believe that that's great for the community, especially with everything that's going on with, as you saw, the DOS attacks. You're becoming a vector. And my last question was, you mentioned previously about a security audit, having done that and having external, and we talked about just getting a thumbs up, thumbs down, AB grade, something like that. Are you doing regular external audits now? That just wasn't on here, so I figured I'd ask.
We have it in the budget for next year to do another audit.
Okay.
So yes, that's in the budget and we like to do security audits from an independent third party from here on forward. So it is in the budget for next year.
Perfect. So I'll just,
We did an external third-party audit, including a red team activity, and it was illuminating. I will say that while there was nothing that was terrifying, there was certainly some things that ended up being added to the engineering work list as a result of having fresh eyes look at it. And so we'll periodically have that done because it seems to be a prudent move.
thank you. So I just would reiterate that just a very basic executive, don't need to know the specifics, but just the second time round, you got your first one for free. The second time round, we'd love to see something like that.
Can you go back to the Whois queries over V6 slide for a second? Owen DeLong, Black Lotus Communications. Any idea what that dip for a couple of days there at the end is?
It's actually a couple of months. I have no idea. So I looked
Okay.
over the data, and I can't explain it.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, it looks like event traffic to me. If it wasn't there, it would be pretty smooth, and I think I actually know what that event is. I'll take a look, and I'll let you know, Owen. Mark, I wanted to just comment real quick on your DDoS stuff, and you mentioned that, and then someone was asking about, I guess, penetration testing or something. Those are some pretty expensive endeavors, especially with your upstreams. They're not going to want to help you too much because they're going to want you to pay for the traffic that they have to carry. You might want to consider DDoS mitigation services. There are a lot of good ones out there. My colleague runs one. I run one. They're not necessarily inexpensive, but they're probably more inexpensive than doing it yourself. The same with the penetration testing stuff. There are a lot of good services out there. And with respect to DDoS mitigation, there are varying levels of DDoS mitigation, and I would urge you to check into them. I think you'd find that they'd be a little bit less expensive than what we're reading here. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you. Great.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.